Med to Med. In today's video, we are going to talk about shadowing. So shadowing is an important component of the AMCAS application, and to get into medical school, it's where you can gain a lot of clinical experience to kind of get your feet wet into seeing if this is what you want to do or if this is the specialty that you're interested in, and also to get a chance to gain a mentor. So where to start with shadowing?
I think one thing, like Kel said, is you want to get exposure to it. So I would probably say, thinking if you already know what kind of specialty you want to get involved in, maybe start with there and see if there's any physicians who will allow you to come and shadow them at their practice. Or if you want to get more of an overview of everything, maybe you can just call and see about shadowing at a family practice or internal medicine office, or even at the ER, because if you shadow there, you're definitely going to see a lot in a day.
Yeah,
so.
Definitely. And it's pretty simple. I know for me, when I first did it, I found the local physicians in the area, called their office, spoke to either the medical assistant or the nurse, and a lot of physicians are willing to help out because they went through this process too, so they know that a lot of students need shadowing experience. So talk to the nurse or talk to someone on the medical staff and say, hey, I'm so-and-so, I'm a pre-med and I'm interested in this, and hopefully they can work something out with their schedule and with yours so that you can get in and start shadowing.
And then, of course, once you do get in good, you have to be professional. So for me, I always like to do like I guess a cold run or dry run before the actual day, so I know where I'm going, so I can know the distance of my starting point to where I need to be, and also map it out with timing. So maybe just going ahead and just checking out the area before you get there, maybe a day ahead of time. Also, if you're planning to shadow for a full day, preparing to have a lunch, because sometimes you'll be in a very busy department where you might not be able to step out and go to the cafeteria. Usually, more than likely, if you're working or shadowing at a hospital, the physician is fine with you, having lunch or leaving or doing half a day or whatever. But like Kelsey said, when you work out that schedule, but just to be on the safe side, maybe bring a couple snacks with you.
Definitely.
Or, have lunch prepared for you or something like that. With my shadowing experience, it wasn't that hard either. I actually was already working in a healthcare related field. So I was working in a physical therapy office. So we come in contact with a lot of physicians just through referrals and other things like that. So I was kind of able to ask if I could shadow and just come and check in. So I shadowed at an emergency room, in the intensive care unit for pediatrics.
Nice.
So yeah, it was a really interesting experience because of course they're kids, so I love kids, so I really thought I wanted to do peds, and I'm still kind of borderline peds. But then when you see them in intensive care, it really is a different perspective, because these are really small children who are fighting really big diseases or having really scary diagnosis. So just kind of seeing that, and also learning the dynamic between the parent and the physician, and as well as the child. So pediatrics, you have a lot of other players involved, because these are little kids who can't say what hurts, they just hurt everywhere.
Yeah.
And then you have parents who are concerned about their child, of course, and then you have the physician who's kind of mind reading a little bit between the parent and the child, and also trying to come up with the perfect plan of care, or so yeah. I learned a lot there. And I also learned that I probably don't think I will do ICU pediatrics, only because it was hard to see those kids like that for me, but it was awesome exposure. I was able to, speak to some of the families with the physician who I shadowed. I also was able to sit in on some of the meetings that they had. So it's really cool if you work with someone, or you're allowed to shadow someone who doesn't mind sharing their knowledge with you. I think that really makes your shadowing experience a lot better than just,
kind of standing on the wall and not
just
learning anything.
looking kind of creepy, and then people are like, okay, who's this weird person just lurking in the background? So.
And that's another thing too. Every patient isn't going to be comfortable with someone standing in their office visit with their physician, so the physician or the nurse will usually ask before you come in if it's okay with them, and sometimes they may say no, it's not okay, so you'll have to sit that one out. And you can just take that time to go over the previous patient case that you just went through, or to prepare questions for the next one.
Exactly. And then it's also helpful for me, I don't know, you might have to ask with the physician, but I used to take a notebook with myself, just to kind of have a note. Of course, you have to be careful of what you're putting in your notebook. You can't put in real detailed information, but you can kind of mark how many hours you spent that time shadowing. So it's really good for logging your hours. And it's also, if you kind of want to write some different case studies or case situations that you were in that day, so that when you get back to like your personal statement, you can look at that and have that to kind of add in there, as well as for interview day, you can kind of look back at that and remember, different things that you learned when you were shadowing.
Yeah.
So.
And another thing in terms of getting to the first point of contact with shadowing, another way to do it is to go with someone that you know. So it could be your pediatrician or your primary care physician, or in my case, it was my grandma's physician.
Mine too, actually. I shadowed with my grandmother's physician as well.
She talked to the physician about, my interest in being a doctor, and basically kind of asked on my behalf if it was okay if I could shadow. He said yes. I called the nurse the next day and tried to schedule something, and then I was in like the following Monday, and I ended up getting a very good experience. I got to actually touch patients, which will be up to the doctor's discretion if that's what they allow you to do, and the patients as well. But I got to feel the lymph nodes because I shadowed an endocrinologist. So that was a really good experience for my first time. It didn't happen like that for my next shadowing experience. Every doctor is different, but for that one, it was really good.
Yeah, that's really exciting. Yeah. And then also, being confident in yourself. Like, I don't know, with my experience, the physician who I shadowed, she would ask me questions sometimes, and I'm sure, she knew that I wouldn't know all the answers, but she just wanted me to, start thinking on the side of being a physician, because that's what they do. They're thinking all the time, and of course, when you get to medical school and residency, on the spot questions is just a normal thing. So just getting comfortable with that. And so first couple of times it caught me off guard, and I felt like really dumb and incompetent. I was like, should I already know this, And then after I would say what I thought, she would explain that was not right, but she saw why I thought that way, or she would help me see what the right way was. But just being confident in yourself, also being respectful of the physician. You can kind of tell when the case is going to be a little bit more sensitive. You can already kind of excuse yourself from that before they needing to, excuse you from it. So, yeah, just being confident, going in with an open mind, trying to learn as much as you can. Also, remembering shadowing is shadowing. It's not going to be a permanent thing. They may allow you to shadow a week, maybe a month, maybe a day, but whatever your experience is, take that knowledge and, use that, apply that to maybe picking out what you want to do long term, or seeing if medicine is even for you. And you might get a chance to shadow an MD versus a DO and see how, the similarities and differences and that kind of thing. So, yeah.
And shadowing can also open up many doors for other specialties that you might be interested in, because doctors know other doctors.
Yeah.
I know with the dermatologist that I shadowed, I told her that I was kind of interested in the procedure and surgical route, so she introduced me to a Mohs surgeon, and I got to shadow him like the next couple days. So that was really cool. And she also put me in contact with a plastic surgeon. Even though I'm not really into plastics, I still tried it out just to see, what that experience was like. And I did it for a day. And I know that I do not want to do plastics, but it was pretty cool to stand in there and to see what actually goes on day to day and what a plastic surgeon actually does.
That's really cool. Yeah. So definitely try out shadowing. I don't think it can hurt. It'll, everybody shadows a different amount of times. I have not had as many shadowing experiences as Kelsey, but I think overall, you definitely want to get in there at least once, so you can know that this is really what you want to do, because medical school and the pursuit of it is long, and you don't want to, it's like buying a car and not test driving it. It's just not the smartest thing to do. And of course, it's always going to be a different experience for everyone, but I just think it is smart to get some shadowing hours. More than likely, the schools that you apply to are going to ask you if you have shadowed, what that experience was like, how many hours. Some schools are heavier on shadowing hours than others, so also look into that when you do your applications, so you know where to send your application. Some schools don't have, I don't know, I think recently the shadowing hours have been changed. I know a while ago they kind of had strict shadowing hours that they wanted you to have. I think now, because there's so many different diverse backgrounds of people who are coming into medicine, they realize that everybody's coming from a different starting point.
So overall, I think they're just looking for clinical experience. It would be nice to have shadowing, and I would say if you get the opportunity to do it at least once. But if you have any type of clinical experience with exposure to medicine, whether it be working at a doctor's office or scribing at an ER or being an EMT or anything of that nature, having that clinical experience is what is going to basically get you that exposure that you need.
It's a really important step. So if you guys haven't shadowed yet, or if you haven't reached out, please do to someone in your local neighborhood. Like Kelsey said, it's pretty easy to just call up a physician, call your own physician maybe, your grandmother's physician, whatever you need to do to get it in, and just kind of shadow and see what that's like. So I think that'll definitely help with your application.
And don't be disappointed if it doesn't work the first time. I've tried to call my own pediatrician and get something set up, and actually I was really set to go, and then the day that I was supposed to go, I called the morning just to make sure everything was still good, and found out that there was a medical student there, and they get priority over a pre-med.
That's happened to me before.
So don't get discouraged if the opportunity doesn't come around the first time. Definitely keep calling. There's lots of physicians around. If you don't get to shadow an MD or a DO, you can definitely shadow an optometrist or a physical therapist or someone like that, somewhere to get you some clinical exposure.
Definitely. And then also, I would say when you get in there, like Kelsey said, with the patient and the physician, bedside manner is very important. So a lot of times we'll learn that in medical school, but I mean, common courtesy, more than likely you've already learned in life, I would hope. So when you go into those patient-centered areas, make sure that you are respectful of the patient, of their families, and as well as the physician. If the physician's in a place where they're able to answer your questions, then of course ask as many as you can, but have a little bit of, I guess, insight as to when is the proper time to ask what. You don't want to ask too many questions in front of a patient that the physician isn't ready to discuss or elaborate on. So
and usually afterwards, after you leave the patient's room, if it isn't as busy, the physician will kind of just go through what he just talked about and what that patient's diagnosis was, and then that's where you can ask your questions.
And then have fun, because honestly, shadowing is a lot of fun.
It is.
You get the right match, it's a good time, and then you go home and you're like, I learned this today and this and that. And
I may not know what it means,
but
I saw it.
But so that's if you guys have any tips about shadowing for us, or if there's any shadowing experiences that you've had and you want to share with us, please leave it in the comments. We'd love to read about them, and always cool to see what other people are doing. Also, if there are any physicians or medical students who also watch from Wed to Med and you are willing to allow any of us to shadow, please leave your contact information. We would love to shadow with you if you are in this Virginia area, or I will be back in Chicago, so that area, just let us know, or wherever. We want to help as many people as we can get as much exposure as they can. So thanks, guys, and until next time, bye.